Hello, D4D. I'm Nick Colley, and today we have a really awesome presentation. On the Hangout with us, we have Lillian. Welcome, Lillian.
Hi,
How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thanks. Hi,
Uh,
yep, I'm at Lillian HJ on Slack. You may or may not have seen me around. Hi, everyone.
so today, Lillian's going to walk us through a new initiative that Data for Democracy, Bloomberg, and Bright Hive have announced on creating a data science code of ethics. You find this topic very interesting and you have more questions. We have a Slack channel that we will post in the little description or doobly-doo down below. So feel free to jump over there and ask questions after presentation. Lillian, the
All
floor is
right,
yours.
thank you. All right, hi, everyone. So this initiative is something we're calling Community Principles on Ethical Data Sharing. And basically, we're aiming to work of values and priorities for overall ethical behavior by data scientists. It will be a sort of code of conduct. We are not trying to propose, a cookbook or comprehensive solutions for how to do things like minimize algorithmic bias and so on. Instead, our aim is to, as I said, define priorities for ethical behavior. And these should just be guidelines that are general enough to be relevant to approach any work or projects while being specific enough to shape concrete actions. In other words, they're just meant to guide in how to be a thoughtful, responsible, ethical agent who can work together productively with other data scientists to actually solve the problems of how to minimize algorithms. So as I mentioned, it's really not so much a checklist or laundry list of things to do as a framework of priorities and values that hopefully people have in common. And our approach to this was a community first one. We decided to host discussions among data scientists, which at this stage we're broadly defining as anyone from students to civic technologists through professionals working for data-oriented firms and so on. The idea is that this code of ethics would emerge as something by data scientists for data scientists. And this is for two reasons. First and foremost, the data science community is a really diverse one that spans a lot of industries and different approaches, academia, various nonprofits, for-profit corporations, and so on. And that we were being responsive to this array of needs and concerns. And also, of course, a code of ethics is no use if people don't actually buy into it. And the hope is that by collecting input from an early stage onwards, we can facilitate the uptake of this code of ethics in future. So those are the two reasons. And we started off doing this with this community first approach right here in the Data for Democracy community, which, as you know, is over 2,000 people connected on Slack, GitHub, and posed various questions on Slack and Twitter, and our community members responded. This is a preliminary scan, and just from this, we managed to identify some recurring themes that community members considered important, and as well as concrete examples of how these themes played out in real data science work. And then we arrange these in a systematic frame, in consulting existing codes of ethics by other nonprofit tech groups and so on. And we took this very recently, we took these findings, these preliminary findings to the Data for Good Exchange at Bloomberg in New York. And we had another, besides presenting at the keynote, we also had a more intensive 20-person working group there where we talked about the findings we've had so far. And a lot of great suggestions and critique and feedback came in, and we're planning to continue that into the future. For now, I'll just talk about the areas of concern that we actually identified throughout the Data for Democracy preliminary scan. As I said, we got a lot of feedback on this at D4GX, and we will be reworking it accordingly, but these are the first ones that we found. And so we identified each of these contains specific subtopics for further consideration. But basically, the first is data itself, questions and problems, algorithms and models, technological products and applications, and the community. And what does each of these actually mean? It includes things like the overall practices surrounding the collection, storage, and distribution of data, and how to understand and minimize intrinsic bias in collected data. For questions and problems, that includes things like how do you identify valuable and relevant problems to work on? And how do you make sure that you're actually connecting with pre-existing resources and parties in those fields and leveraging their work, the existing work? The third question, the third area, algorithms and models, is a lot of the controversial things that have been discussed, like how do you understand and minimize bias in algorithms? How do you make sure you're responsibly dealing with black box algorithms when you're not necessarily sure what's even going on inside? And the fourth area, technological products and applications. So that's taking responsibility for how your research is applied and identifying and guarding against the potential for misuse. For example, the creation, say, misleading AI products from what may seem like neutral research. Is community, which refers to the data science community itself. How do you make sure you're fostering a culture that's actively inclusive and welcoming to people from diverse backgrounds? How do you deliberately promote equity and representation and find a way to track this progress in an ethical, non-invasive way? So those are the 5 areas of concern. And there's still a lot of work ahead. As previously mentioned, it's meant to frame a much larger discussion. We're going to take these findings and construct survey questions that will be sent out to the greater data science community. We hope to reach 100,000 data scientists. This may sound like a pipe dream, but we've gotten a lot of interest so far from large partners like O'Reilly and so on, who would be willing to help spread the word. And I think with their help, it would definitely be possible to get that much input. And that would be great because, as I mentioned, we really want to make sure this is as reflective of the opinions of the broader data science community as possible. Of course, we want to continue to gather existing examples of code of ethics work, because there are a lot of groups that have been producing codes of ethics, whether on a smaller scale in areas. But either way, it's good to make sure we're building on those and maybe amplifying existing voices rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. And participate, as we hope you will. If you're an individual data scientist, you can respond to the discussion question to be posting on Twitter at Data for Democracy, and also write in our own Slack channel, which is P Code of Ethics on the Data for Democracy Slack. If you're an organization or an institution, we'll be holding working sessions similar to the one at D4GX that will be centered on specific questions and just working to intensively restructure the framework. These will probably take place bi-weekly over October and November through conference calls. And if you're an organization that's interested in taking part, you can send a representative or more to take part in these working sessions. If you're anyone who has ever made use of or worked on a code of ethics, we'd love for you to share literature and content that you already have. You can shoot that to our email at ethics@datafordemocracy.org. Our findings will be consolidated and presented again in mid-December, and then we'll keep working from there, of course, to actually in the language and talk about what really goes in the code of ethics. Right now, this is again more about pinning down the framework. And here is where you can find us. Things like here, we have a page for this project at the website. We have a specific email where you can shoot any questions, discussions, comments, material they already have. That's, as I said, ethics@datafordemocracy.org. We have our Twitter. We have our Slack, which you should be on if you aren't yet. And we're on GitHub, where we hope to be uploading a lot of the materials that were sent, just so everyone knows where they are. There are a lot of challenges surrounding this work, things like define a data scientist in the first place and so on. And of course, it's going to be difficult to implement any kind of, just to implement any sort of standardized code of ethics across such a large and diverse community. And these are challenges that we're aware of, and make sure that we're thinking about these properly and that we can overcome this and make sure that the code of ethics is as feasible and as representative of the community and its needs as possible. Hope to see you in Slack.
All right, thank you so much. Again, we put the channel descriptions and the links all down below, so if you're very interested in participating in this code ethics discussion, feel free to join there. Also, or you can just participate through our Twitter questions, so subscribe to D4D there. Talk to you in a little bit. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lilian.